I really loved the first season of Vinland Saga. The action was absolutely stunning, from Thorfin nimbly dodging blade after blade, to Asgard's cunning plans, to the beast of a man, Thorkil, just absolutely loving life. The tension was heart-poundingly gripping, from the impactful duel with Thors, to Thorkil's pursuit through the snow, and the bloodthirsty political intrigue. The world building, the minute details of the environment is spot on, and while the grand scale may not be historically accurate, it perfectly reflects the bloody nature of the age. The characters and their stories are awe-inspiring, from the redemption and protective pacifism of Thors leading to his downfall, his son's revenge driving him down a dark path similar to his father, the overprotective guardian of Canute, Thorkil just absolutely loving life, and of course, the immense complexities of Askeladd throughout the entire show. To put it mildly, Season 2 doesn't exactly fill these shoes. But let me speak of the positives. The minute world building is still here, arguably more so than before. The roads, the farming methods, how walking across the fields destroy wheat, roofing in this era, and this particular scene. Man, that moment really made me smile. The strategy this guy employs in the final battle is excellent. Not so much the execution, but I'll save that for later. The final episode was nice. The farmstead owner Kettle is averse to violence and treats his slaves nicely, with an opportunity to work for their freedom. However, he lacks the courage to speak out against the head guard to defend innocent kids. Furthermore, when disaster comes, and piece by piece his power and pride gets taken away, he furiously lashes out. Quite a nice little downward arc. And then Canute, undoubtedly the best character of this season. I didn't speak much of him in the first, mainly because he was completely overshadowed by all the other characters and their struggles. Here, however, he really comes into his own. It's brief, but his rise to power is great to see. The assassinations he carries out, the fake sympathy he has for his dying brother, and one of the best scenes was this dominance over this lord, by showing exactly what would happen if he resisted.
想像するがいい、エアドリク。たった今、マーシアは灰に帰した。わかったか。世がその気になれば、貴様らを焼き尽くすことなど造作もないのだ。
It beautifully shows how ruthless he can be, while also showing restraint by using signal fires instead of a much more bloody display. And of course this scene shows how clever and cunning he is to set up this elaborate display beforehand. Excellent character work here. Although I'm really not keen on the illusion of the former king's head constantly berating him, saying how he's becoming evil and just like him. Good grief, this aspect was so stupidly blunt and unnuanced, it became like an anchor to Canute. Which unfortunately brings me to the end of the positives. So, plot summary. A guy named Einar is living in a peaceful farming village when Vikings attack and kill his family. Not sure why there wasn't even a palisade built around the place, especially since it was attacked before and how the Viking Age is in full swing by this point. Anyway, he's taken into slavery and sold to Kettle, who tells him to clear a forest to make way for more farmland. This is where we find Thorfin has been this whole time. Turns out he's repressed all memory of his actions in the first season and has been mindlessly chopping down trees with horrid nightmares of what he did.
Lame, 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 lame!
Sorry, I was hoping he was doing something badass, or at least somewhat interesting since we last saw him. Not miserably and dully chopping wood. Also, I guess Canute didn't do anything for him.
Good job.
Anyway, episodes 2 through 4 deal with the arduous work being slowed by these bullies, and they later slash at Thorfin as he stands there just taking it. The result of this is a scene where Einar learns Thorfin killed lots of people. In the following scene, Einar contemplates strangling him in his sleep, but stops as he takes pity on him. It's an alright moment that showcases Einar's moral character and Thorfin's mental state. Unfortunately, it's an isolated scene, meaning it could be cut from the show and nothing would change. Despite this massive reveal for Einar, their dynamic doesn't change. Thorfin doesn't open up any further, and Einar is still an optimist, happily working with this former killer. I guess this scene is where Einar sees what happens to someone when they spend their life constantly fighting, but this doesn't affect much of his decisions either. Cutting forward a few years, Canute has been growing his power while having to deal with new rivals for the English throne.
Perhaps it would be better if Mr. Harrison were taken out of the picture.
Sorry, guys, you're doing it again.
What, Alan?
Have him removed. Take him out of the picture. I thought we agreed at the meeting that these terms are needlessly ambiguous.
I suppose.
This is where the excellent scene of displaying the landscape on fire happens. Episode 6, they get a horse. Episode 7, a pair of kids gets wrongly accused of stealing and Keto's pressured into beating one of them. Episode 8, their wheat has been destroyed by the retainers. They confront him and, annoyingly, Thorfin gets beaten by these utter nobodies. He just crawls on the floor and gets knocked out. Afraid this leads to episode 9, easily the worst episode and quite possibly the worst messaging in any anime ever. Unconscious, Thorfin dreams of his victims crawling over him just like his father. The ground collapses, dropping him towards hell. He then hangs on a chasm above thousands of warriors, endlessly fighting in a sea of blood. He then has a long conversation with Askeladd, where he explains all warriors end up here, and that's where Thorfin was before he became empty. Now that he's resorted to violence, he's on the brink of falling here again. Oh, what's more? All of his victims are piling up, ready to drag him back down, and he cries at the sight of them. Askeladd shouts for him to climb up and take all those victims with him. He climbs up and the screen goes white as he wakes from the dream. So, where should I begin? Perhaps how horribly blunt this is? No, I shouldn't even need to do that. Perhaps how unnuanced this all is. Yeah, that sounds better. Do you realise how simple-minded it is to say all warriors, as in every last one of them, deserves eternal damnation? What of those who fights to defend others? Or those fighting a great injustice? Or those who kill horrid people, who if left alive would kill far more? Or those who simply fight to survive? Simply labelling everyone who fights is destined for hell is absurd. Maybe they're using the word warriors to refer to evil people who slaughter the innocent or something, but then Askeladd is here. He's done many, many evil things, but he's a far more complicated character than simply evil, and that's even without his sacrifice to stop a war.
俺は戦士ってのは大嫌いだ。ノルド戦士、バイキングは特にな。
己自身が王となり、世を変えようとは思わぬのか。
あなたの方が王にふさわしい。俺はスベン王よりもね。俺はただのバイキングですよ。
Also, it's a bit awkward using the word warriors.
本当の戦士には剣などいらぬ。本当の戦士へ至る道はどっちか。ここはクソどもの吐きだめだ。戦士が最後に行き着くところ。
Well, this is awkward.
Furthermore, they specify he was empty inside, which is why he wasn't destined for this place. But then he punched the retainer and now he's back. Problem is, this act isn't remotely wrong. It may be using violence, but what else is he supposed to do? Just stand aside and allow Aina to get beaten to death? Neither side was going to back down, and the retainers were utterly in the wrong. And with what they did, it's unlikely anyone would punish the pair. What he did isn't some school kid scrap. It is quite justifiable, and certainly not eternal damnation worthy. Man, he didn't even put up a fight afterwards, leaving his friend to battle 5 guys at once. His refusal to fight could easily have got Aina killed. So yeah, this episode is horribly blunt, unnuanced, simple-minded, and a piss-poor lesson. Episode 10 then. More time passes, where the last tree is felled, and Ketil and Sons go to meet Canute. He, meanwhile, has secretly poisoned his own brother, so he can take over both England and Denmark. When visiting him on his deathbed, he finds the plan has worked and smiles. Suddenly, the beheaded king speaks to him, chastising him for his evil deeds. It's good that he's conflicted, but this scene would have worked a lot better had the brother appeared as a child rather than the former king, or if he saw the advisor watching disapprovingly. Having the former king say how Canute's becoming just like him is not only terribly blunt, it takes away a potentially meaningful scene. Imagine after this moment he is forced to eat in this longhouse, seeing all the thanes who served his brother, and perhaps all the good he did. Perhaps Canute then has to remind himself of the greater good this is all for. He could even hesitate at drinking his own wine as he wonders if someone else had a similar idea. Episode 11, Canute needs funds but doesn't want to downsize his army. Therefore he decides to forcibly plunder some valuable farmland. Enter Ketil and Sons. It goes well at first, but the stupid, weak Olmer pleads to the king to let him join his guard, and Canute brings out a pig, which he can cut. The king uses this to goad him into a duel with some of his own men, and by a servant of his causes Olmer to kill the man. Wanted for murdering the king's guard, conditions are now set to plunder Ketil's farm in 3 days. The trio manage to escape via Leaf, and oh yeah, he's just learned Thorfin is on the farm. Okay, episode 13 begins with a slave burning down his... oh bloody hell, not this part. This part drags on for a long time. I'll just sum it up. This bloke previously joined the rest of his villagers to attack a neighbour over an iron mine. They lost, his son was killed, and he and his wife ended up as slaves. Now he's killed his master, ran around killing a bunch more retainers, found his wife, which just happened to be the woman both Kettle and Aina loves, on the same farm. He gets captured, but the woman frees him, and he kills a bunch more, but gets mortally injured. Thorfin and Aina try to help him, but they don't really do much. The main retainer properly stabs him, and he goes off to die on a cart. Commenced the most drawn-out death in the entire show, with even more moronically blunt visions. Yep, this is still going. I've got on 32 times the speed, and it's still going. Yep, still going. I wasn't kidding when I said it was the most drawn-out death sequence ever. There we are. This event is 5 episodes long, a whole hour and 40 minutes. Good grief, I could have rewatched the entirety of Toy Story, or The Lion King, or Commando instead of this. Hell, Bad Travelling from Love, Death, Robots has far more tension, impact and meaning from the entirety of this season, and it's only 23 minutes long. Seriously, go watch it. This here is only a side story about a guy who came out of nowhere, and the woman whose only character trait is that she's kind. Our pair has nothing to do with this, and didn't affect anything. They tried to get him away because they liked the woman, and had a sort of duel with this guy, but the bloke died anyway. They could have spent the day personally fertilising their crops, and the end result would have been exactly the same. There's not even any consequence for what they did. As for the bloke in question, how should I put it? I care more about the trampled wheat than anything to do with this guy. The only thing supposedly endearing about him is his love for his wife and son. Except we're not shown this love before the death scene. The flashbacks only show him smiling and then arguing why war will be good. Aina's introduction was nothing special, but I feel his family cares for each other. Here, not so much. Secondly, we can't take pity on him for several reasons. 1, he was responsible for his family's enslavement, and supposedly for no good reason. 2, we aren't shown the cruelty done to him, merely told about it. And 3, he runs around like a madman, killing every retainer he finds. If he came to the old man uninjured, he probably would have killed him too. He's Kettle's father and former slaver after all. The anime doesn't even give him any kind of peaceful or reflective moments. Perhaps the largest missed opportunity was with the master's wife and baby. Could have been a great parallel for him, or could have been an interesting moment of regret or even sorrow for the misery he caused them. Moreover, imagine if he helped her escape the fire he caused, perhaps with some hardship or struggle. How much would have that added to his character? Instead, they just have him walk off. So yeah, when the longest death in history rolled around and around and around and around, I'm supposed to feel sad this reckless madman who caused his wife enslavement and killed a bunch of guys for little reason is dead now? I would tear up for the woman had she had more character than kind. So far, she's been shown as a kind person who Aina and Kettle fancy, so you'd be forgiven in believing her to be a plot device to cause conflict between the two, not become the emotional core of practically a fifth of the show. Had she been a character with agency instead of just love interest, it might have been better. There's a scene where she's slapped and one feeling this emotion, but she needed more. As it stands, I feel sorry for her as I would seeing a stranger go through this. Sad, sure, but not devastating. So the character side of things is crap, but what about its message? His thirst for war and plunder caused him and his wife to lose everything. Afraid this fails too, and in a couple massive ways. 1, the reasoning for their war was so unclear it's hard to tell whether it's justified or not. And 2, had they won their battle, their village would have been better off for all we know. So war and plunder might have worked out in this particular scenario. Also, slavery bad. I guess a lesson most isekai need to learn, but it shouldn't be remotely revolutionary. I suppose there's the question of whether it was right to help this guy. You know, the guy who murdered several people, will murder more, and who has no method of escape. Literally can't see a way this could possibly end well for anyone. Oh, sorry, it's to help the woman.
Jimmy, you're thinking with your dick.
Back to the plot then. Leaf, Kettle and Sons return, and learning she tried to escape, Kettle snaps at the thought of losing everything, and bashed the woman near to death. Leaf offers to buy her, but he refuses. Episode 19 and 20 concern the battle. Thorgil tells everyone there's only 100 of Canute's forces, and knowing they have 350, everyone laughs. Thorgil and main retainer guy know these 100 are the best soldiers around, and they don't stand a chance in hell. The latter tells his guys he's going to fight anyway, to keep as many of his side alive, and because he owes the Master for the years staying here. Loyal to him, the guys decide to join him. Also, the Master was never this famous marauder, he only shared the same name as him. No clue how this relates to Thorgil and Olma. Either they knew he was a fraud this whole time, or they're so unbelievably oblivious they didn't connect the dots. Anyway, Kettle tells everyone to attack, while Thorgil comes up with his strategy. I personally really love this scene. Thorgil says it's flat terrain, so they can't launch any surprise attacks.
オルマル、これをどう攻める？
野襲。
ブー。野襲ってのは上等な戦士のやることだ。あんな奴ら、クソの役にも立ちゃしねえ。100数える間に皆殺しだ。
The peasant soldiers charge and quickly get slaughtered. Thorgil uses this time to swim around the back of Canute's forces and try to kill him. After many of them are massacred, Main Retainer orders a retreat to everyone's relief. Thorgil goes to kill the king but fails, mainly because he took too long to say he needs to kill the king quickly.
遊んでやりてえのは山々だが、すみませんな。
Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate.
Thanks for the advice.
So he runs off, allowing the survivors to escape, including Main Retainer, who brings Kettle back. And that's the battle over. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned either of our pair. Well, that's because they're helping transport the horribly injured woman to Leif's boat. Unfortunately, she dreams of being casted away by her husband, who tells her to say a final farewell to everyone. She wakes and tells them the sound of the battle was like the destruction of their village, says thanks, and dies.
My father's work is done.
Main Retainer arrives with Kettle, causing Einar to try and kill him. Thorfin punches Einar and goes straight back to dangling over hell. Oh wait, that's not what happens, as I guess this violence is perfectly fine. After all, it's punching to protect Einar, while before it was punching to protect Einar. Clearly the one before was wrong. Well, anyway, he tells him killing the Master won't quell his rage, that anger begets more anger. Good lesson, but Thorfin never got his revenge. It was taken away from him, so he shouldn't know if finally getting his revenge will help or not.
それで、仇は撃ったのか？
いや、アシュラットは俺じゃない男に殺された。
Anyway, Olma, who couldn't swim with his sword, goes back to the camp and sees the injured, and makes the decision to surrender, while Thorfin decides to speak with Canute to stop the war. He arrives at the camp, explaining he used to guard Canute 4 years ago. Obviously not believing him, the guards refuse, while Canute doesn't let him through. The guards challenge him to take 100 punches from this guy, and if he can take it, he'll see the king. Twisting his body before each impact, he's able to soften each blow. Midway through, there's this scene.
真剣に話し合いで解決する努力をしたのかよ。
Oh, trust me, I'm going to get back to this point. But for now, he managed to take the 100 punches and meet the king. Finally, the confrontation the entire anime's been leading up to. And it's not bad. It starts with a back and forth between these two, till Thorfin reminds Canute of his promise to create paradise on Earth. He essentially explains he needs to conquer and unify as much as possible to create paradise for all. Annoyingly, the beheaded king comes back to lecture Canute, whereby Thorfin says,
俺は逃げる.
I'll also be coming back to this point as well. So Canute's plan essentially boils down to saving many at the cost of oppressing a few. Therefore, Thorfin plans to save those few by bringing them to a place beyond his reach, and asks Canute to limit that number as much as possible. Canute agrees, and they leave. As in, he literally takes his force, goes home, and disbands his army. Would have been quite awkward had the English rose up against their conqueror while his army was disbanded, starting a whole nother civil war of carnage and mayhem. But hey, that luckily didn't happen, so Thorfin's in the clear. Funny how a pursuit of peace can sometimes lead to more war, isn't it?
European peace is what I am aiming at, and I hope that this journey may open the way to get it. This country is at war with Germany.
I guess when you delve into the world of geopolitics, things become vastly more complicated than avoid war good. Anyway, they say goodbye to everyone and they leave for Iceland. Kettle's depressed, almost working with his crush. Thorgil's wandering goodness knows where. Retainer guy and lads are working a field, none of which died by the way, while former slave bloke tends the woman's grave. Last and best episode, they reach Iceland where Thorfin reunites with his mother and sister. It starts by describing the harshness of the island, then Thorfin trying to prove he's this long-lost kid to little avail, before a proper touching reunion with his mother.
Thorfin.
That was so bloody funny. It's absolutely priceless. Anyway, after Thorfin explains his long journey, he explains his plan to create paradise in Vinland, and after Leif explains the basics of what he needs, they all commit to this endeavour, or saga, if you will. Finally, they visit the slave's grave from the very beginning, where Thors and Thorfin look toward the horizon. The end. You might have guessed by now, but this season is incredibly disappointing. The first was filled with hard-fought battles, gripping duels, clever and cutthroat political scheming, larger-than-life characters, deep complex stories, and an impressive arcing narrative. The second is filled with woodcutting, farming, more woodcutting, brief interesting stuff about Canute, more farming, yet more farming, more woodcutting, and the most simple-minded moral lessons ever. Oh, it's well animated, the attention to detail is impressive, and the music is simply majestic. But good grief, is it boring. The moment you think something exciting is about to happen, it abruptly ends. The retainers brought Einar and Thorfin to be killed. Let's watch Thorfin take them all on. He just stood there getting slashed and dodged once. Alright, the pair are going to avenge their crops on the retainers. Here we go. Oh, Thorfin got smacked and is now dreaming about hell. Thorgil's killed a bunch of guards. Is he going to take on an army as Kettle and Olmer escape? They just sneak away. Off screen. Okay, this random guy. No idea who he is, but he's been built up like a badass. Is he going to take on the retainers as soon as he's free? They cut away.
Maybe we should go inside.
But Marge, that little guy hasn't done anything yet. Look at him. He's gonna do something, and you know it's gonna be good.
Alright, the big battle. Here we go. The whole season's been leading up to this. It's going to be far better than anything we've seen before. Okay, Kettle's ordered his charge and... No, don't cut back to the dying woman. Fast forward. Faster forward. Okay, we're back. Let's see the battle unfold, and... it's a one-sided slaughter. But maybe there's some tension around the retainers. Well, one lost his hand, and that's it. We only see the main retainer kill one guy, and that's it. But wait, maybe Thorgil can liven things up. Alright, he's killed the king's bodyguards, and is about to kill the king when this guy tackles him. It's annoying that he took too long, but perhaps now he's going to take on all 100 at once, just like a certain someone did. Alright, here comes the carnage, and... he buggered off.
Brave Sir Robin ran away. No! Bravely ran away.
I thought he revelled in war, and this was his only chance to kill the king. Besides, I thought he'd love to take on many guys at once.
Phrasing?
And that's it for action. Honestly, more carnage in the opening than this entire season. Look, I don't need every anime to be filled with battles, bloodshed and beatings. I've watched plenty of actionless shows that are very well done. Ascendance of a Bookworm and My Life as a Villainess are good examples. Except one's a heartwarming family drama about a girl inventing stuff, while the other's a goofy comedy about a lovable ditzy idiot. This season was a sequel to a masterclass of action and tension, with all kinds of interesting characters and perspectives. Now it's berating the audience about how war is bad and you shouldn't enjoy it. Sorry, but I came here for nail-biting, swift action pieces alongside moving character moments, and got Moral Lessons Primary School Edition. And farming. Lots and lots of farming. I know it's ironic that I of all people hate this, but come on. It's completely at odds with the action of the first. In short, Vinland Saga Season 2 is mind-siphoningly dull, and has moral messaging that utterly break apart with seconds of thought.
お前が権力に任せて無茶を通すつもりなら俺は逃げる
If your acting is successful, you'll be able to get us all the information we need to stop this whole thing from happening. Of course, if you're not interested, there's the door.
All right, thanks.
逃げる先があるうちは俺は戦わない。
Do you see the problem here?
お前も努力しろ。俺の仕事を増やすな。
You've got to do better, Senator.
剣を必要としない地を作りたい。
でもその地をどうやって守るんだ。俺だって戦争は嫌いだ。平和や自由を守るためなら戦わなきゃならない時もあるよ。
平和のために戦争してちゃ意味がない。そんなんじゃあの殺し合いの地獄からは抜け出せない。
Let me see your whole palace, or else.
Or else what?
Or else we will be very, very angry with you. And we will write you a letter telling you how angry we are.
話し合いで解決するくらいならとっくにやってな。
本当にそうか。本当に真剣に話し合いで解決する努力をしたのかよ。
If it was me, I would have done something about it. Hey! Stop it. Stop it. Okay. Okay? Okay. All right.
So yeah, Season 2 sacrificed the fun, action and characters for horrid moral lessons and farming. Hope we get something actually worthwhile next time.